I can't believe I'm saying this, but 28 years later, The Bone Temple is really good. Great, actually. While it may not come as a shocker to many of you that the follow up to Danny Boyle's 28 Years Later is such an exciting follow up, I wasn't as huge on that movie as many seem to be. I thought it was a decent watch, a surprisingly solid revival of a franchise that had been silent for almost 2 decades. I loved its themes of family and especially the father son dynamic with Jamie giving Spike lessons on becoming his own man. I also really appreciated the ending of the film. And for the most part, I'll always admire a filmmaker who takes bold swings, not only narratively, but practically in his approach. And Boyle did a lot of things technically that just not many other filmmakers are doing. And while I think the spectacle of iPhone movie making has already been overblown by this point, he did it better than most. Yet, I don't know, the movie tended to feel a bit overbearing for me. Almost like it had too many great ideas, that it lacked the focus or the ability to center on one thing without immediately feeling the need to redirect to a chaotic action sequence. And I'm not saying the action was bad, but I think I personally just gravitate more towards the pathos and the more intimate character moments over the all-out chaos of it all. And that's what's so odd to me about the Bone Temple and why it works so much. Stylistically speaking, this movie follows much more of a typical horror movie structure. It's incredibly suspenseful and dark and atmospheric. There are plenty of moments of unsettling imagery from the very beginning. And there aren't necessarily jump scares or common cliches. It's not a horror movie in that sense, but tonally, it's very consistent with what you'd expect from that genre. Nia DaCosta is a director who, simply put, hasn't really gotten a fair shake of it, but Bone Temple proves that not only does she have an incredible idea of what this genre should look and feel like, but she shows great appreciation and understanding for great character work as well. This movie is also very intimate. Just like the last movie, the stuff when characters are trying to survive and adapt in this landscape is the best of it, and there's more of that here. While it's darker in nature and in tone, it's also less chaotic in the way that there's not as much happening all at once. It's spread out much more effectively. There are great set pieces and sequences of high tension, but overall, it's a very narratively dense story about humanity in and of itself, the battle of good versus evil, science versus religion, and finding hope in the most hopeless environment. It also says a lot about humans as a species, and if we don't find ways to adapt, how we're all eventually just gonna die out. Much of this exploration is shown through Ralph Fiennes' Dr. Kelson as someone who's seen it all, and yet has never given up the idea of a possible world where these infected can't be saved from the illness they were burdened with. They aren't just zombies, because all hope isn't lost, and thanks to his undying obsession, we see there actually being progressions made in his experiments, potentially becoming legitimate cures. And then on the opposite side of the coin, there's the Jimmy Gang and Jimmy Crystal, who represent the worst of humanity. A society of people who have taken advantage of the circumstances to prey on the vulnerable and the weak. Most terrifyingly, Spike is now forced to live alongside them, their ideology being forced upon him, and we suddenly see everything he was trained for and taught by his father be tested. Everything with the Jimmy cult is great and delivers the most unnerving elements of the movie, but I also hated it because it is such a huge contrast from the side of the story that is genuinely hopeful, but it's all executed very well. Everything I feel was intentional. It's also a movie that is surprisingly very funny, and it does it in a way that makes you very uncomfortable, but at the same time, it cuts through the tension in a much needed way. It adds an extra little dynamic and stylistic flair to the overall story that kind of gives you a break from the madness temporarily. It's also really got its finger on the pulse in terms of culture. Surprisingly, there is an absolutely incredible soundtrack backing this movie. Overall, the movie just feels like it gives you so much more room to breathe, while still being expansive in the way that it continues to build on the lore and introduce new ideas and questions that make it essential for a third film after this. And after feeling a bit underwhelmed with its predecessor, it's refreshing to come out of this one with optimism and genuine excitement for the continuation of the story. And if you would have told me after watching the original 28 Days Later that this is the progression the franchise would take, I would have absolutely laughed in your face, but it's truly incredible what they're doing here. I actually think this may be my favorite of the franchise, but I'm going to sit on that thought for a while. My bones are aching. Anyway, January is off to an incredible start, and if there are 10 or 15 movies better than this one the rest of the year, we're in for an all-timer, folks. Tell me your thoughts on the movie. As always, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you guys for the continued support as always, and until next time, peace out.